Hi, I'm John Cerrito and welcome to Summit Showcase. Over the years, we at HTTV have been very fortunate to have a number of very talented volunteers and interns. Former Short Hills resident Daniel Errico is one of those. Danny has become a well-known, award-winning author of children's books, with some of his work being highlighted by the major streaming outlets like Hulu. We will hear more about this as well as other highlights of Danny's career path as we join HTTV station manager Amanda Olson, who had an opportunity to sit down remotely with Daniel for a very interesting discussion.
Hi, Daniel. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Great. So let's let the audience know, where did you grow up? You're kind of local to the Summit area, I've heard.
I grew up in Short Hills, right on the border of Summit, right on the other side of 24.
Nice. Growing up in Short Hills, going to school there, living there, was that any of the influences from your books and your childhood? Did you bring that into your stories and stuff?
I don't know if there's anything Short Hills specific, but definitely themes from my childhood made it into my books. I think a lot of my picture books are really me speaking to myself and things that I wanted to hear when I was growing up or things that I wanted to hear more of. And I wanted to pass that on to a next generation.
Oh, that's really nice. What kind of books were you reading and that you were like, I kind of want to hear, like you said, more about maybe this or that subject or type of character?
Mhm. I loved Dr. Seuss growing up. I know I'm not the only person out there that would say that, but he was a big influence on me. And I remember reading his books as a child and the fantastical creatures, the made up words, all things like that. It gave me an interest in world building and character building, and also, making up words that would be fun to read, hopefully, for parents and kids.
I saw the website and it had like free stories. Was that what it is?
Yeah, well, it's called freechildrenstories.com.
Oh, okay.
That's part of when I started. I started writing and illustrating a story a week and putting it up on the site freechildrenstories.com just to get better at storytelling. This is the same phase when I would bring illustrations in a little binder that I made and just flip the pages for kids just to get more, FaceTime with kids to understand what they do and don't want to rehear about. But freechildrenstories.com has been a wonderful outlet for me to put stories up there for kids for free. I've tried to put as many as I can, even the ones that are published, as much as possible without running afoul of my publishers. The goal of that site is to give kids free media, free access. It's luckily read by parents and guardians and teachers all over the world. I get input from them a lot, positive, negative, all that, and requests and things like that. But it started a long time ago in 2008, and I was lucky to get 10 hits a day. And now I get somewhere between 5 and 10 million a year. And it's been really great to see it grow and the audience grow.
Wow, that's amazing. So you still do add to that
I
today as
do,
well?
yeah, as much as I can. And I've started putting more of my longer form stuff, like middle grade novels up there. And that's been super fun to be able to see the reaction from people, asking for sequels and things like that, and telling me stories about reading it to their kids at night, chapter by chapter. So I've loved everything about that site. And it's been great to continue to be able to give it away for free, which is really important to me because as much as I love the kids media industry, I think that there can be some competing interests, and that marketing departments aren't always necessarily looking out for kids development as much as they should. Sorry to say.
And it gives you free access, of course.
Yeah, there's no sign up, no downloads, no anything. You just go on the site and read the stories as much as you want.
That's awesome. I did want to ask, when you're creating a story, is it the drawings and doodles that come up first? Is it the story idea, the words, or is it just a mix of all of it for you?
Over the years, it's definitely been a mix. Like the first story, The Journey of the Noble Narble, was an idea I had while I was about to go to sleep. That kind of fun phase when you're tired but not asleep yet and your brain's just going in weird directions. And my fascination with the very deep ocean. I love the idea that there's so much we don't know about it. And yeah, I think inspiration can come from any point. I'm laughing because one of the readings I did for that story, I remember prefacing it to the classroom and saying to the kids, it's okay if you don't know these fish, the names of these fish, because they're made up, they're imaginary. So it's all right if you don't recognize them and haven't seen them because no one's seen them. I remember this particularly bold kid said, my dad has seen them. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't think he did. He's like, no, no, no. My dad caught one of those fish. I was like, oh, geez, I don't want to call your dad a liar or you a liar. So I'm just going to say that's wonderful. But I mean, I love the interaction with kids in those readings. Their questions are incredible. And they're also just super smart. Kids are so smart when it comes to stuff about science and nature. They know more about the ocean than I do. But to get to your question, sorry. Nowadays, it's much more the words that come up to me, like the general concept that I want to come across. And more, it's about the message that I want to get across to kids. And then kind of cultivating a story around it that I think would be the most fun, engaging, entertaining way to get that message across. There was one Dr. Seuss book in particular that really inspired me to want to be an author. Apart from anytime I open a book and seeing the dedication, that was really inspiring for me, wanting to one day be able to dedicate a book to someone I love. There was a specific story called the Butter Battle Book by Dr. Seuss. It was later made into an animation in the phase when they were animating a lot of Dr. Seuss, like How the Grinch Stole Christmas. But this story is not as well known as a lot of the other books from Seuss. And it centers around these two groups, the Yooks and the Zooks. And one of them eats their bread butter side up. One of them eats their bread butter side down. I don't remember who's who over the years, but they are in this kind of Cold War scenario where they're getting in an arms race because there's a wall between them. They don't like each other, and they're always worried the other one's going to attack them. They come up with these fantastical, Seussical weapons that get bigger and bigger and bigger until they get really small into just a ball that if they drop it, it's going to mean oblivion. And I remember looking back on that book as an adult and understanding that it had shaped my views on weapons of mass destruction. Unfortunately, still very relevant today. And I thought it was just the greatest thing that a story had stuck with me and the message had stuck with me, and it helped form my opinion on something. And in this case, kind of educated me on a concept. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to find a way to create stories that are going to stick with someone throughout their life in a positive, productive way.
That's very true. Something that's not so obvious too in the book. They're not literally talking about that subject, but the takeaway, especially when you get older, you go back and you read it again, you're like, that's what they were talking about the whole time? Or
exactly. I remember, there was a scene at the end where there's two guards are holding a ball, looking at each other in the eye, wondering if the other's going to drop it. And that stuck with me, that scene. The context I did not understand, as to your point, but now I do. And that scene is still so powerful in my mind of thinking, wow, that's not a good position to be in. I don't want these guys sitting here waiting to drop something. I hope that they can work it out.
Yeah. And it's I think your books, you could really see the inspiration of Seuss with the made up characters and names and stuff like the fish.
Oh, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you.
And then also just the themes, like the underlining themes that maybe a kid may not understand now, but later in life they'll be like, I was always there in them, but not realizing what it really meant, So I think what you have to say is very positive. When I finally have kids, I can't wait to read your books to them because I think they're absolutely amazing.
That's very high praise. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. So my background was actually in something very far from kids' books. It was in mechanical engineering, and then I worked in finance for a little while. And when I made the transition to kids' media, or attempted to, I decided to read all the fairy tales I could get my hands on to try to become, maybe not an expert, but less ill-informed on the foundation of kids' stories. And I started to notice themes that were repeating themselves over and over. And more importantly, I noticed omissions of certain kinds of characters and certain kinds of stories. And so part of the mission that I adopted was to try to represent some of those people, some of those stories in kids' books, and be a part of that shift towards more diversity and more representation from the industry at large. And that's something that I'm still really passionate about. And every project I take on now, I try to have, if not the subject matter, at least an angle on it that might be underrepresented.
Right. I see that with The Bravest Knight. It's very diverse. I love that. I love how the characters are very different. from adoptive daughter, so you get that aspect. Not a lot of books growing up, have different types of families shown, so that was really nice. And then I know the book became, which we'll talk about, a Hulu series, which is so cool and exciting. And which made it to be proclaimed one of the first TV shows for children with an openly gay character, main character, which I think is a beautiful thing, and we need more of for sure. So you do see that in your stories. If you want to talk about that from that particular book to getting into Hulu and what it is today and what that means to you and others.
Sure, absolutely. It is funny when you talk about a takeaway from the story, including being an adopted child. There's always people that comment to me that have a different takeaway from the story. And almost because we have somewhat of an ensemble cast, a different what they see as the lead character. And I love that about that. I love that we have represented so many different characters that different people kind of latch on to one as opposed to the other. Kind of the impetus behind The Bravest Knight Who Ever Lived, which was the original story, was basically to take those old fairy tale tropes and to add something new that I believe needed to be there, which is to have an openly gay protagonist. Because, as a straight white cis male, I had almost every single hero for me. I was well represented. And I say that to the detriment of other people. And also I got to see the effect of how helpful that was to me, to be represented and to find strength and at times solace in those characters. And it's something that I feel really strongly everyone deserves to have, again, from feeling the positive benefits of it. And so it seemed like far beyond time to have a gay hero. And there's many more characters we need to be doing from here, of course. So I started with that story, and I made it into an animated short with the help of a wonderful animator in Denmark. And I was able to license it to Hulu, and subsequently Rosaline, which has a queer female lead, to Hulu as well. But actually Hometown has a role in how that came to be, because I used to volunteer at Hometown in around, I'm bad with years, but I think it was 2011 to 2012, when Jesse Patterson was the station manager, who was just a wonderful person who welcomed me with open arms. And I was able to learn camera work, editing, technical directing, teleprompter, which is way more stressful than I realized, trying to keep up with the anchors. And during that time, we went on site to visit a school. And the principal there was a man named Randy Rosilli, and he had a studio, an animation studio in New Jersey. And from meeting him while I was doing the work at Hometown, I mean, apart from it just being a great introduction to learning more about TV, it gave me that connection to Randy, where I worked for about a year, partnered with him, and made a connection to Hulu. And from there, when I produced that short, I was able to reach back out to Hulu, because that was independently that I made that. And they luckily answered my email, remembered who I was in some way, and they said they want more content like this out there, kind of as you said, that it's important to have more of this. And they licensed the short from me, and I was super happy to hear they wanted to see a full series. So I was able to partner with a studio called Big Bad Boo, who really, really believed in this content. They're all about representation. They're all about telling stories that no one else is telling. And they said, we're going to make this one way or another. And they made it. There are certainly obstacles along the way, but they made the show a reality. And now it's available on Hulu.
That is so cool. And I was going to talk about the tie-in to HGTV,
yeah.
the Hometown TV.
I jumped the gun.
Beautifully. I had no idea it went that deep, where because of that on-site visit, you made that connection. That's so cool. That's really cool.
It's a really great part of, I think, the Hometown community that exists, is that you're meeting all these people. I got to hear, from behind the camera, you're still listening, it's hard not to these interviews, and learning about people in the surrounding communities and Summit and around there. And I got to know some really, really cool stories. And I value my time there a lot, because, going from all these different career changes, it can be daunting and intimidating. And Hometown kind of allowed me to take an easy first step into it. And as I said, Jesse being the wonderful human that he was, he really made me feel at home right away in all the things I was trying to learn and all the things I did not know. I'm sure my framing was all off when I started, if I were to look back.
Oh, I really love that. What other projects are you currently maybe working on or thinking about? Maybe if there's other just dreams and goals that you might have, maybe a full feature film of one of your stories. I don't know what's out there.
Well, we're definitely working on season 2 of Bravest Night, which I'm really excited about, and hopefully we'll have more to share publicly on that soon. But you know, my start and my heart is still very much in picture books as well. And I have my 4th picture book coming out. I actually can show it to you real quick. It's called Don't Hug the Quokka.
Oh my God, it's so cute.
Thank you. It's a great illustrator named Mia Powell. And this is from Imagination Press, which is the publishing arm of the American Psychological Association. And it has a theme of consent, using this adorable quokka that I feel universally everyone would want to hug because they're so cute. And, you know, just trying to explain to kids that just because you want to hug someone doesn't mean they want to be hugged. And bodily autonomy is important, boundaries, consent, all those things. There's a wonderful message from a psychologist in the back to kind of give you a starting point to talk to kids about it and the right way maybe to approach it.
Oh, that's fantastic. And once again, just those themes that we should be talking more about in everyday life and making it a little more fun and easier to absorb and understand as a child. I think that's right. A wonderful thing. Yeah.
I'm glad you feel that way. I say exactly how I feel. I think there's a lot of things that, when done the right way, can very much be age appropriate. And you can, you know, kids are ready to learn and they're open-minded about subjects. But I think that a lot of harm can be done when you actually avoid subjects, because then they learn that they're taboo when they don't have to be. Things like gay marriage, that of course are just a wonderful part of life. And kids are ready to learn that just as much as they are to see a straight family on camera.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Talking about kids though, if there is a child who has dreams and goals and they don't know how to make it a reality, maybe it's a kid, a teenager, or even a grown-up who wants to like just change their path and career into something that you do, like what, you know, would you have, what kind of advice would you have for a young person just trying to follow those dreams and goals?
Well, the headline would be do it, go for it, and enjoy yourself as much as you can along the way. But when I speak to kids in schools and assemblies and things like that, excuse me, I always try to ask at the beginning, how many of you out here see yourself as a writer? You know, raise your hand. How many of you see yourself as an illustrator? And there are a few hands, a few people, a few young people who have been encouraged or maybe just know they have that spark and that talent. But then I go through the story of kind of how I picked this career path and how it came to be, and how the first stories I ever illustrated were just by hand myself. Now I have much better illustrators. You know, they were just me with colored pencils. And I was fortunate that some of those became #1 bestsellers on Barnes & Noble, and they had success of their own despite the lack of artistic talent. And I try to explain that the moment you write something, you're an author, and the moment you doodle, you're an artist. And that, you know, some kids know that already. It depends on where I go. There's certain communities that maybe are able to reinforce that with kids more so than others. And the goal is that by the end of the assembly, after seeing my terrible artwork and seeing the wonderful stories that there's another one here. I have to show this just because the artwork from Tiffany Terrell is just so wonderful. This is with my first published book, The Journey of the Noble Narble. And to see the transition from the original drawings that she did and then this polished work, and how everything starts with just the effort, and having an idea and putting it to paper is such a powerful thing. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and you don't have to be the perfect person to draw it or write it. You just have to have something you want to share. And, you know, hopefully by the end of the assembly, everyone raises their hands and says that they're a writer or they're an artist. So I would say, believe in yourself, because all the things that might swarm around your head and say that this is an obstacle, this is a reason why I can't be the person who does that, don't listen to it. It's not true. and it's just going to get in your way. And if you are the person who makes that story, then you have such a leg up on everyone else, because you have the bravery to put it out there. And there's something so important about that, and that we're waiting for it. I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to see it. So don't hold it for yourself. Share it with us, and we're all going to be better off for it.
Is there anything else before we end you would like to talk about, or just anything that you at all we maybe didn't cover?
Well, there are some projects that I wish I could share more about right now, some shows in development. Hopefully I'll be able to maybe come back and talk about them another time. But no, honestly, one of the things that I just want to say is a big thank you to Hometown TV for their really important step on my journey. And I think it's just a wonderful station, and I love you guys, and I'm rooting for you no matter where I am in the country, where I'm working or where living. And it's been a pleasure to get to be associated with Hometown over the years.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It was so great to talk to you.
You as well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.